I will never forget that day. It was a sunny Saturday afternoon, and I decided to surprise Emma with her favorite coffee from the little cafe down the street. As I walked in, the familiar scent of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, mingling with the sweet aroma of pastries. I smiled to myself, thinking about how much Emma would appreciate this small gesture. But as I turned to the corner table, my heart sank. There they were, Emma and Chris, laughing together, their faces lit up with a joy that felt foreign to me. Chris Reynolds, the charming businessman who had recently moved to our neighborhood, was leaning in close, whispering something that made Emma throw her head back in laughter. The sound pierced through me like a knife. I stood frozen, my coffee cup trembling in my hand. My mind raced as I tried to process the scene before me. Emma, my wife of 5 years, was wrapped in the arms of another man, and it felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me. I had always thought of our marriage as a fortress, built on trust and love, but now, it seemed like that fortress was nothing more than a fragile illusion. I wanted to scream, to confront them right there, but my body wouldn't cooperate. Instead, I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. I turned and stepped outside, the door chiming behind me as if mocking my despair. I leaned against the cool brick wall of the cafe, trying to catch my breath. How could this happen? I had always considered myself a good husband. I worked hard, provided for us, and made sure Emma had everything she needed. Yet here I was, watching her share intimate moments with another man. It was as if my entire world had been turned upside down. As I stood there, the reality of the situation began to sink in. I couldn't just walk away and pretend I hadn't seen anything. No, I needed to know more. I needed to understand how deep this betrayal ran. With a newfound determination, I wiped away the tears that threatened to spill and turned on my heel. I would find a way to uncover the truth, to expose whatever was happening between them. I could no longer be the oblivious husband, I had to take control of my life. The laughter from inside the cafe echoed in my ears as I walked away, a haunting reminder of the happiness I thought I had. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a dark journey that would change everything. I sat in my office, the dim light casting long shadows across the room as I replayed the scene from the cafe in my mind. Emma's laughter still echoed in my ears, mingling with the bitter taste of betrayal. I felt a fire igniting within me, a rage that demanded action. I couldn't just sit back and let this slide. I needed a plan, a way to make them both pay for the pain they had caused me. I took a deep breath and opened my laptop, the screen illuminating my face in the darkness. I knew I had to act carefully, to be methodical. If I rushed into this without thinking, I risked exposing my intentions and losing everything. I needed to gather information about Chris Reynolds, his business dealings, his personal life, and anything that could be used against him. I started with a simple Google search, typing in his name. A wealth of information flooded the screen, articles about his successful company, interviews where he boasted about his achievements, and even a few social media profiles filled with pictures of him at lavish parties. The more I read, the more I realized how much power he wielded in our community. He was well connected, respected, and had a reputation that I was determined to shatter. As I dug deeper, I stumbled upon a few troubling details. There were whispers of questionable business practices and rumors of shady dealings that could easily tarnish his pristine image. I leaned back in my chair, a wicked smile creeping across my face. This was the ammunition I needed. I decided to reach out to an old friend from college, Mark, who had a knack for digging up dirt. He had always been good at finding the skeletons in people's closets, and I needed his expertise now more than ever. I sent him a message, carefully crafting my words to sound casual as if I was simply curious about Chris's business. "Hey, Mark, do you know anything about Chris Reynolds? I've heard some interesting things about his company. Just wanted to catch up and see if you had any insights," I typed, my fingers trembling with anticipation. While I waited for his response, I began to outline my plan. I needed to gather evidence, something concrete that would make it impossible for Chris to recover. I envisioned a series of anonymous tips sent to his business partners, highlighting his questionable practices and hinting at his personal life. If I could create enough doubt in their minds, I could bring him crashing down. The thought of Emma's face when she realized what I was doing sent a thrill down my spine. She would see that I was not the weak husband she had taken for granted. I was no longer the man who would sit idly by while she betrayed me. I would become the architect of Chris's downfall. As the minutes ticked by, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. This was not just about revenge, it was about reclaiming my power. I would not be a victim any longer. I would take control of my life, and I would make them both pay for their betrayal. Just then, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was Mark. "Hey, I might have something for you. Let's meet up later. I'll fill you in," he replied. A surge of adrenaline coursed through me. I was one step closer to executing my deadly plan, and I couldn't wait to see it unfold. The following days were a whirlwind of activity as I plunged headfirst into my plan. I felt a sense of purpose that I hadn't experienced in a long time. The anger that had once consumed me was now channeled into something tangible, something I could control. I was determined to gather the evidence I needed to dismantle Chris's life piece by piece. I reached out to an old acquaintance, Tom, who had worked in finance and had a reputation for being well connected. We hadn't spoken in years, but I knew he had the skills I required. After a few texts back and forth, we arranged to meet at a bar downtown, a dimly lit place where we could talk without drawing attention. As I walked into the bar, I spotted Tom sitting at a corner table, nursing a drink. He looked the same as I remembered, sharp suit, slicked back hair, and a confident demeanor. I approached him, and he greeted me with a nod, his eyes scanning the room as if he were assessing potential threats. "Jacob, long time no see," he said, his voice low. "What's going on?" I took a seat across from him, leaning in slightly. "I need your help, Tom. It's about Chris Reynolds." His eyebrows raised in surprise. "The businessman? What do you want with him?" I hesitated for a moment, weighing how much to reveal. Let's just say I'm not a fan of his methods. I need information, anything that could damage his reputation. Tom studied me for a moment, then nodded slowly. "All right, I can help you. But it won't come cheap. I need to know you're serious about this." I felt a surge of determination. "I'm dead serious. I'll pay whatever it takes." We spent the next hour discussing potential leads. Tom mentioned a few contacts in the industry who might have insights into Chris's dealings. He also suggested looking into public records for any financial discrepancies or legal issues. I took notes furiously, my mind racing with possibilities. After our meeting, I dove into research. I spent hours combing through online databases, searching for any hint of wrongdoing. I discovered that Chris's company had faced a few lawsuits in the past, mostly settled quietly. But there was one case that stood out. A former employee had accused him of unethical practices, claiming he had manipulated financial reports to secure a lucrative contract. This was gold. If I could find more details about this case, I could use it to my advantage. I reached out to Tom again, asking if he could dig deeper into the legal documents. He agreed, and I felt a sense of excitement building within me. But I knew I needed more than just legal issues. I wanted something personal, something that would make Chris's downfall not just professional, but deeply humiliating. I began to follow him discreetly, watching his routine, hoping to catch a glimpse of something that could serve as leverage. It wasn't long before I noticed a pattern. Chris frequented a high-end gym across town. I decided to join the gym under a different name, blending in with the crowd. My heart raced with anticipation as I walked through the doors for the first time, scanning the room for him. Over the next few weeks, I became a regular. I observed Chris during his workouts, noting his interactions with others. He was charming and charismatic, but I knew that beneath that facade lay the truth I was determined to expose. One day, while I was on the treadmill, I overheard a conversation between Chris and another gym member. They were discussing a recent business deal, and Chris mentioned a little favor he had done for a client. My ears perked up. This could be the lead I needed. I discreetly took out my phone and recorded the conversation, my heart pounding with adrenaline. As I left the gym that day, I felt a rush of exhilaration. I was making progress, and with each piece of information I gathered, I could feel the walls closing in on Chris. I was on the right path, and there was no turning back. My plan was taking shape, and soon, I would unleash it upon them both. With each passing day, my resolve grew stronger. I had gathered enough preliminary information about Chris, but I needed something more concrete, something that would leave no room for denial. I envisioned a collection of undeniable evidence that would expose him for who he truly was. It was time to take my plan to the next level. I began researching surveillance equipment online, poring over reviews and specifications late into the night. I wanted the best quality without breaking the bank. After a few days of careful selection, I ordered a couple of hidden cameras and a set of discreet microphones. I felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. This was risky, but I knew I had to do it to ensure my plan's success. When the equipment arrived, I felt a surge of adrenaline. I spent the next few hours setting everything up, carefully choosing locations that would give me the best chance of capturing incriminating evidence. I decided to focus on the cafe where I had first seen Emma and Chris, as well as the gym where I had been following him. I also scoped out a few other places he frequented, including a local bar where he often met clients. The cafe was my first target. I arrived early in the morning before the crowd settled in. I discreetly placed a small camera in a potted plant near the entrance, ensuring it had a clear view of the seating area. I also set up a microphone beneath a nearby table, hoping it would pick up any conversations that took place. My heart raced as I imagined the potential conversations I might capture, anything that could expose Chris's true nature. Next, I headed to the gym. I waited until the evening when it was less crowded. I found a spot in the locker room to place another camera, ensuring it was hidden but still capable of recording anyone who entered. I knew this was a risky move, but the potential payoff was worth it. I could already envision the look on Emma's face when she realized the extent of Chris's deceit. After setting up the equipment, I returned home, my mind racing with possibilities. I had done everything I could to ensure I would gather the evidence I needed. Now, all I had to do was wait and watch. Over the next few days, I checked the footage regularly, my heart pounding with anticipation. Most of the recordings were mundane, people chatting about their days, ordering coffee, and working out. But then, on the third day, I struck gold. While reviewing the footage from the cafe, I saw Chris walk in with a woman I didn't recognize. They sat at a secluded table, their body language intimate. I leaned closer to the screen, my heart racing. As they talked, I could see Chris leaning in, whispering something that made the woman laugh. I quickly activated the microphone, hoping to catch their conversation. "What about Emma?" the woman asked, her tone teasing. Chris chuckled, "She's clueless. I've got her wrapped around my finger. This is just a little fun on the side." My breath caught in my throat. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This was the evidence I had been searching for, proof that he was not only involved with Emma but was also mocking her behind her back. I felt a surge of satisfaction mixed with rage. I had to get this information to use it at the right moment. I continued to monitor the recordings, and over the next week, I captured more conversations that painted a damning picture of Chris. He spoke openly about manipulating clients and using underhanded tactics to secure deals. Each revelation added fuel to my fire, solidifying my resolve to bring him down. But I knew I had to be careful. With each piece of evidence I gathered, I had to plan my next steps meticulously. I couldn't afford to make a mistake. I was getting closer to my goal, and soon, I would unleash the truth upon them both. The thrill of the hunt was intoxicating, and I was determined to see it through to the end. As I continued my quest to dismantle Chris's life, I felt a growing sense of urgency. I had gathered enough evidence from my surveillance, but I needed something that would truly cripple him, something that would not only expose his current misdeeds but also reveal his past. I decided to dig deeper into Chris's history, hoping to uncover any skeletons that could serve as my secret weapon. One evening, while searching through online archives, I stumbled upon an old article buried in a local news website. The headline read, "Businessman Chris Reynolds accused of fraud." My heart raced as I clicked on the link, eager to uncover the details. The article detailed a scandal from several years ago, where Chris had been accused of manipulating financial statements to secure a major contract. Although he had managed to settle the case quietly, the implications were severe. The article mentioned that several clients had pulled out of their contracts after the allegations surfaced, tarnishing his reputation at the time. I felt a surge of excitement. This was exactly the kind of information I needed to exploit. If I could bring this scandal back into the light, it would not only damage Chris's current standing but also cast doubt on his integrity in the eyes of his business partners. I took screenshots of the article and began to draft a plan for how to use this information to my advantage. I envisioned sending anonymous emails to key players in Chris's network, subtly dropping hints about his past indiscretions. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how effective this could be. I also remembered Tom's connections in the finance world. I decided to reach out to him again, sharing the article and asking if he could help me spread the word among his contacts. "Hey, Tom," I wrote in a message. I found something interesting about Chris Reynolds. Can you help me get the word out? I think it could be useful for some of his business partners to know. Tom responded quickly, intrigued by the potential scandal. Absolutely. I'll see what I can do. This could be big, he replied, and I felt a rush of satisfaction. I was finally taking control of the narrative. Over the next few days, I crafted a series of anonymous emails, carefully wording them to sound credible. I made sure to include links to the article and mention how Chris's past could affect their business dealings. I sent them out to a select group of Chris's associates, watching as the seeds of doubt began to take root. The reactions came faster than I anticipated. I started receiving messages from various contacts, expressing concern and disbelief. Some even reached out to me for more information, eager to learn about the man they had trusted. I felt a twisted sense of pleasure as I watched Chris's world begin to unravel. But I knew I couldn't stop there. I needed to ensure that this information spread like wildfire. I took to social media, creating anonymous accounts to share the article and the rumors surrounding Chris. I joined relevant business forums and subtly dropped hints about his past, ensuring that the whispers would reach the ears of those who mattered. As the days passed, I could feel the tension building. I watched as Chris's demeanor began to change. He was no longer the confident businessman I had seen in the cafe. He was now visibly on edge, checking his phone constantly and engaging in hushed conversations with his associates. It was a beautiful sight, knowing that my plan was working. But I had to remain cautious. I couldn't let my emotions cloud my judgment. I was still in the shadows, pulling the strings, and I needed to stay one step ahead. The thrill of the chase fueled me, and I was determined to see this through to the end. Chris would pay for his betrayal, and I would be the one to ensure he faced the consequences. As the days turned into weeks, I felt the tension in the airshift. I was riding a wave of adrenaline, fueled by my secret campaign against Chris. Each small victory brought me closer to my ultimate goal, but it also came with a price. I could sense that Emma was beginning to notice the changes in my behavior. At first, it was subtle. She would glance at me over her coffee, her brow furrowed in confusion. "You've been a bit distant lately, Jacob. Is everything okay?" she would ask, her voice laced with concern. I would smile and reassure her, insisting that work had been stressful, that I was just tired. But inside, I was a storm of emotions, anger, betrayal, and the thrill of revenge. I tried to maintain my composure, but the weight of my secret was becoming harder to bear. I was living a double life, and the guilt gnawed at me. I had to keep my focus on Chris, but I couldn't let Emma's suspicions grow. I knew that if she started to dig deeper, she might uncover the truth about my plans. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching a movie, I felt Emma's eyes on me. "You seem different, Jacob. I just want to make sure you're all right," she said, her tone softer now, as if she were trying to reach out to me. I turned to her, forcing a smile. "I'm fine. I just have a lot on my mind with work. You know how it is," I replied, hoping to deflect her concern. But as I spoke, I could see the doubt in her eyes. She wasn't convinced. The following days were filled with her probing questions. "Did something happen at work? You can talk to me, you know," she would say, her voice tinged with worry. I felt a pang of guilt each time she expressed her concern. She had no idea that I was plotting revenge against the man she had betrayed me with. I began to change my routine slightly, trying to throw her off the scent. I started spending more time at the gym, claiming I needed to blow off steam. I made an effort to be more present when I was home, engaging in conversations and planning spontaneous outings. But no matter how hard I tried, I could feel her unease lingering in the air. One night, as we lay in bed, I could sense her restlessness. "Jacob, I love you. I just want to know what's going on with you. You can trust me," she whispered, her voice barely above a murmur. I turned to face her, my heart racing. "I know, Emma. I appreciate it. I'm just going through a rough patch, but I promise I'll be all right," I said, my voice steady, even as my mind raced with thoughts of revenge. I couldn't let her see the truth. I couldn't let her realize that I was on the brink of destroying her world. As the days turned into a blur of tension and deceit, I found myself growing more adept at hiding my emotions. I would smile, laugh, and engage in conversations, all while my mind was consumed with thoughts of Chris and my plans for revenge. But the more I acted, the more I felt the weight of my deception pressing down on me. I knew I had to be careful. If Emma continued to suspect something was off, she might start investigating on her own. I couldn't let that happen. I had to keep her in the dark while I executed my plan. The thrill of the chase was intoxicating, but the fear of being discovered was a constant shadow looming over me. With each passing day, I felt the stakes rising. I was walking a tightrope, balancing my desire for revenge against the need to maintain my relationship with Emma. I had to stay focused and composed. I was determined to see my plan through, no matter the cost. The day had finally arrived. I sat at my desk, my fingers trembling slightly as I hovered over the send button. I had crafted the perfect anonymous email, filled with just enough damning information to set the wheels in motion. With a deep breath, I pressed send and watched as the message disappeared into the ether. It didn't take long for the ripple effects to begin. Within hours, I started receiving notifications on my burner phone, messages from various business contacts, all expressing shock and concern over the revelations about Chris. I felt a surge of satisfaction, knowing that my plan was unfolding exactly as I had envisioned. As the day wore on, the scandal began to snowball. I watched from the sidelines as Chris's associates reached out to him, demanding answers. His usually confident demeanor crumbled as he tried to defend himself against the mounting accusations. I could almost feel the panic radiating from him, and it brought me a twisted sense of joy. But as the hours ticked by, I found myself experiencing a strange mix of emotions. The thrill of seeing my plan succeed was undeniable, but there was also a growing sense of unease within me. I had spent so much time and energy focused on my revenge that I had almost forgotten the consequences it would have on Emma. I thought about her, sitting at home, blissfully unaware of the storm that was about to hit. She had been through enough heartbreak already, and now she was about to face the fallout of Chris's downfall. A part of me wanted to reach out to her, to warn her. But I knew that would only raise more questions. I had to stay in the shadows, a silent observer, to the chaos I had created. As the day turned into night, the scandal continued to dominate the headlines. Chris's company was in turmoil, with clients pulling out of deals left and right. His reputation, once so carefully cultivated, was now in shambles. I should have felt triumphant, but instead, I felt a growing sense of emptiness. I thought about the man I had become, consumed by anger and a thirst for revenge. I had sacrificed my morals and my sense of self to bring about Chris's downfall. And in doing so, I had also put Emma in a precarious position. She was now left to pick up the pieces of a life that had been shattered by my actions. As I lay in bed that night, unable to sleep, I realized that my victory felt hollow. I had achieved what I had set out to do, but at what cost? I had become the very thing I despised, a manipulator who used underhanded tactics to get what he wanted. And in the end, it was Emma who was paying the price for my actions. I knew then that I had to find a way to make things right. I couldn't undo what I had done, but I could try to mitigate the damage. I had to find a way to support Emma, to help her through this difficult time. It was the least I could do, after putting her through such a devastating ordeal. As the sun rose on a new day, I made a decision. I would reach out to Emma, to let her know that I was there for her, no matter what. I would be the rock she needed, the support she could rely on. And maybe, just maybe, I could find a way to forgive myself for the choices I had made. As the scandal surrounding Chris Reynolds unfolded, the consequences became increasingly clear. I watched from a distance as his once thriving business crumbled, clients abandoning him left and right. The media frenzy surrounding the revelations of his past misdeeds only added to the chaos, and soon, his name became synonymous with corruption and deceit. But as I observed the downfall of Chris, I couldn't help but feel a growing sense of unease. Emma, the woman I had vowed to love and protect, was now caught in the crossfire of my revenge. She had lost the financial support she had grown accustomed to, and I knew that she was struggling to make ends meet. I saw her in the grocery store one day, her eyes downcast as she carefully selected items from the shelves. Gone were the designer clothes and the confident stride that had once defined her. In their place was a woman who looked weary, burdened by the weight of her new reality. It was at that moment that the full impact of my actions hit me. I had set out to destroy Chris, to make him pay for his betrayal, but in doing so, I had also hurt the woman I loved. Emma, who had once been the center of my world, was now suffering because of my choices. I wanted to reach out to her, to offer her the support she needed, but I knew that I couldn't. I had to maintain my distance, to keep up the facade of the oblivious husband. If Emma were to discover the truth, It would only add to her pain and confusion. As the days turned into weeks, I watched helplessly as Emma fought to keep her head above water. She took on odd jobs, working long hours to make ends meet. I saw the exhaustion in her eyes, the way her shoulders slumped with each passing day. And through it all, I felt a growing sense of guilt and regret. I had thought that my revenge would satisfy me, that it would ease the pain of Emma's betrayal. But instead, it had only served to compound her suffering, to strip her of the life she had known. I found myself torn between my desire to help Emma and the knowledge that I couldn't reveal my involvement in Chris's downfall. I wanted to be there for her, to offer her the support and comfort she needed, but I knew that doing so would only lead to more questions and more pain. As the weeks turned into months, I watched as Emma slowly began to rebuild her life. She found a job that paid the bills, and she even started to smile again. But I could see the scars of her ordeal etched into her face. The way she flinched at the mention of Chris's name. And in those moments, I knew that I had to find a way to make amends. I had to find a way to help Emma heal, to make up for the pain I had caused her. But the question remained, how could I do that without revealing the truth, without shattering the fragile peace she had managed to find? It was a dilemma that weighed heavily on my mind, a constant reminder of the consequences of my actions. I had thought that my revenge would bring me closure. But instead, it had only left me with a heavy heart and a deep sense of regret. The day I had dreaded finally arrived. I was sitting in my office, trying to focus on work, when I heard the front door slam shut. My heart raced as I recognized the sound of Emma's footsteps approaching. I knew, in that moment, that she had discovered the truth. When she burst into the room, her eyes were red from crying, her face a mask of betrayal and anger. "How could you, Jacob?" she cried, her voice trembling with emotion. "How could you do this to me?" I sat there, stunned, unable to find the words to defend myself. I had spent so much time and energy plotting my revenge against Chris that I had never truly considered the consequences of my actions. And now, here was Emma, the woman I loved more than anything, demanding answers. "Emma, I began, but she cut me off with a wave of her hand. "Don't even try to explain yourself," she spat. "I know what you did. I know about the anonymous emails and the rumors you spread. You destroyed Chris's life, and in doing so, you destroyed mine too." I felt the weight of her words like a physical blow. She was right, of course. In my quest for revenge, I had lost sight of what truly mattered. I had sacrificed my relationship with Emma, the one thing that had always been constant in my life. "I did it for you," I said weakly, knowing even as the words left my mouth that they were hollow and meaningless. Emma let out a bitter laugh. "For me? How is this for me, Jacob? I'm the one who's had to pick up the pieces. The one who's had to struggle to make ends meet because of your actions." I opened my mouth to speak, but she silenced me with a look. "No, you don't get to talk your way out of this. You made a choice, Jacob, and now you have to live with the consequences. I can't be with you, not after this." I felt the world tilt on its axis. Lose Emma? It was unthinkable, unimaginable. She was the one constant in my life, the one person I could always count on. And now, because of my actions, I was in danger of losing her forever. "Emma, please," I begged, reaching out to her. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far." But she shook her head, her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and disgust. "It's too late for that, Jacob. The damage is done. I need time to think, to figure out what I'm going to do." With that, she turned and walked out of the room, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the weight of my actions. I sat there, stunned, watching as the woman I loved walked away, taking a piece of my heart with her. I knew at that moment that I had to do something, anything, to make things right. I couldn't lose Emma, not like this. But the question remained, how could I possibly undo the damage I had done? As I sat there, staring at the empty doorway, I realized that I had reached a crossroads. I could either continue down the path of destruction, or I could find a way to make amends, to rebuild the trust I had shattered. It was a choice that would define the rest of my life, a choice that would determine whether I would be a man worthy of Emma's love or a man consumed by his demons. And as I sat there, the weight of that decision pressing down on me, I knew that I had to find the strength to make the right choice. In the days following Emma's confrontation, I found myself trapped in a whirlwind of emotions. The initial rush of satisfaction I had felt when Chris's world began to crumble had long since faded, replaced by a gnawing emptiness that settled deep within me. I had set out to destroy a man, to exact my revenge, but in doing so, I had lost the one person who mattered most, Emma. Everywhere I turned, I was reminded of the life we had built together. The photographs on the walls, the little notes she had left for me, the laughter we had shared, they all felt like ghosts haunting me, taunting me with what I had sacrificed for my misguided quest for vengeance. I had thought that bringing Chris down would somehow restore my sense of dignity and my sense of self-worth, but instead, it had left me feeling hollow and lost. I spent hours lying awake at night, replaying the events in my mind. I had convinced myself that I was justified in my actions, that I was merely defending my honor. But now, as I reflected on the destruction I had caused, I began to question everything. Was it worth it? Had my desire for revenge truly been worth the pain I had inflicted on Emma? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I had become a stranger to myself. I had let anger and resentment consume me, turning me into someone I barely recognized. I had crossed lines I never thought I would. And in doing so, I had betrayed my values. I felt like a puppet, dancing to the strings of my rage, and now I was left with nothing but regret. I tried to reach out to Emma, to apologize, to explain that my actions had been driven by pain and betrayal. But each time I picked up the phone, I hesitated. I was terrified of what she would say, terrified of the possibility that I had lost her forever. I knew I had to confront my demons before I could even think about repairing our relationship. During one particularly sleepless night, I found myself staring at the ceiling, grappling with the reality of my situation. I had to face the truth. I had become the very thing I despised. I had manipulated, deceived, and destroyed, all in the name of revenge. And now, I was left with the consequences of those actions, feeling trapped in a cage of my own making. I thought about Chris and the life he had lost. Yes, he had betrayed me, but did he truly deserve the destruction I had wrought? I had taken everything from him. And in doing so, I had lost a part of myself. The thrill of revenge had turned into a burden, a weight that pressed down on my conscience. As dawn broke, casting a soft light across my room, I made a decision. I couldn't continue down this path of self-destruction. I had to find a way to make amends, not just to Emma, but to myself. I needed to confront Chris, to face him and acknowledge the pain I had caused, not just to him, but to everyone involved. It would be a difficult journey. But I knew it was the only way to begin healing. I had to take responsibility for my actions, to own up to the hurt I had caused. And perhaps, in doing so, I could begin to rebuild the trust that had been shattered, not only with Emma but within myself. With that resolve, I took a deep breath and prepared to face the consequences of my actions head-on. It was time to step out of the shadows and confront the truth, no matter how painful it might be. I had to reclaim my life, and in doing so, I hoped to find a way back to Emma. As I stood at the crossroads, the weight of my decisions pressing down on me, I knew that I had reached a pivotal moment in my life. I could either continue down the path of destruction, fueled by my desire for revenge, or I could take a step back and try to rebuild what I had lost. It was a choice that would define the rest of my existence, and I knew that I had to make it with clarity and conviction. I thought about Emma, the woman I loved more than anything in this world. I had hurt her and betrayed her trust, and now I was faced with the daunting task of trying to make amends. I knew that it wouldn't be easy and that the road to forgiveness would be long and arduous, but I also knew that it was the only way forward. I thought about Chris, the man I had sought to destroy. In my quest for revenge, I had become the very thing I despised, a manipulator who used underhanded tactics to get what he wanted. I had taken everything from him, and in doing so, I had lost a part of myself. I knew that I had to face him, to acknowledge the pain I had caused, and to take responsibility for my actions. As I stood there, the weight of my decisions pressing down on me, I realized that the only way to move forward was to let go of my anger and resentment. I had to forgive, not just Chris, but myself as well. I had to acknowledge that I had made mistakes, that I had let my emotions cloud my judgment, and that I had to find a way to make amends. With that realization, I made my choice. I would reach out to Emma, to apologize for the pain I had caused her and to beg for her forgiveness. I would tell her the truth, about my actions and my motivations, and I would leave it up to her to decide whether she could ever trust me again. I would also reach out to Chris, to apologize for the destruction I had wrought and to offer whatever support I could to help him rebuild his life. It wouldn't be easy, and I knew that there was a chance that I would lose everything in the process. But I also knew that it was the only way to find peace, to reclaim my life and my sense of self. I had to let go of the anger and resentment that had consumed me, and I had to find a way to move forward, one step at a time. As I made my way to Emma's apartment, my heart pounding in my chest, I knew that I was taking a risk. But I also knew that it was a risk worth taking. I had to try, to make amends, to find a way to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. And if I failed, at least I would know that I had tried. That I had taken responsibility for my actions, and that I had done everything in my power to make things right. When Emma opened the door, her eyes red from crying, I knew that it wouldn't be easy. But I also knew that I had to try. I told her everything, about my actions and my motivations, and I begged for her forgiveness. I told her that I loved her, more than anything in this world, and that I would do whatever it took to make things right. And as I stood there, waiting for a response, I realized that I had finally found peace. I had let go of the anger and resentment that had consumed me, and I had chosen to move forward, to rebuild my life and my relationships. It wouldn't be easy, but I knew that it was the only way to find true happiness, to reclaim the man I had once been. In the end, Emma did forgive me, and together, we began the long process of rebuilding our relationship. It was a journey filled with ups and downs, with moments of doubt and uncertainty, but it was also a journey filled with love and hope. And as we walked that path together, I knew that I had made the right choice, that I had found a way to move forward and reclaim my life.